Hey, Vikings fan! Something just happened that could completely change the direction of this season, and honestly, I don't think everybody saw it coming this soon. The quarterback situation is finally settled. But trust me, that's not even the most interesting part of this story. There are some serious questions now about what this means for the team moving forward, and Vikings fans are definitely going to have opinions on this one. So before we get into everything, if you're ready to see what happens next, hit that like button for the Vikings and let me know in the comments, SKOL Vikings, if you're rocking with the team no matter what. Let's see how many Vikings fans are here. The Minnesota Vikings have made the decision that could define the entire 2026 season. And honestly, the most surprising part may not be who won the quarterback job, but what this decision says about everything that happened behind the scenes. Kyler Murray is officially QB1 in Minnesota, and that means J.J. McCarthy's path from highly drafted franchise quarterback to potential backup has taken a dramatic turn. For weeks, the Vikings had been presenting this as a genuine competition. Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy were splitting opportunities, both quarterbacks were being evaluated, and the expectation was that Kevin O'Connell would eventually determine which player gave Minnesota the best chance to win. Now, that decision has been made. Murray will lead the Vikings into the regular season, beginning with a Week 1 matchup against the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. And while some Vikings fans may look at this announcement and say, well, of course, there is a much bigger question underneath it. Did Kyler Murray actually win this competition, or did J.J. McCarthy lose it? That distinction matters. The decision itself is not necessarily shocking. Murray entered Minnesota with an extensive NFL resume. He was the #1 overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, a Heisman Trophy winner, and a quarterback who had already started 87 NFL games before joining the Vikings. Minnesota signed him after his release from the Arizona Cardinals, giving the team an experienced quarterback who had already proven he could operate at the highest level of professional football. McCarthy, meanwhile, entered this season with something completely different. He was still trying to establish himself after missing his entire rookie season with a torn meniscus. He eventually got his opportunity in Minnesota, but consistency remained the major question surrounding his game. And that is where this quarterback competition becomes fascinating. Because according to the analysis surrounding the Vikings, McCarthy showed exactly why the organization was intrigued by him, and exactly why they remained hesitant to hand him the job again. There were flashes. There were impressive throws. There were moments where McCarthy looked like the quarterback Minnesota hoped it drafted. But those moments were mixed with inconsistency. One spectacular throw could be followed by a stretch that raised the same questions all over again. That appears to have been the central issue for the Vikings. Not whether McCarthy was capable of making NFL-level throws, but whether he could consistently execute the offense at the level required for this team right now. And that is a critical difference. McCarthy has shown that he can make the kind of throw that makes everyone stop and pay attention. But the Vikings apparently wanted more than flashes. They wanted consistency, command, decision-making, and the ability to operate the offense at a high level on a snap-to-snap basis. That is where Murray ultimately separated himself. And there is another reason why this decision creates enormous expectations for the Vikings. Minnesota is not entering this season as a rebuilding team that can afford to wait indefinitely for its quarterback to develop. The organization has built a roster designed to compete. Justin Jefferson remains one of the biggest weapons in football. The receiving core gives the quarterback significant support. The offensive line is expected to be healthier, and the team has a defense capable of giving the offense opportunities. Kevin O'Connell is also now tasked with getting everything possible out of Murray. That combination changes the expectations completely. Nobody should expect Murray to simply duplicate Sam Darnold's 2024 season in Minnesota. win 14 games, and throw 35 touchdowns. That would be an enormous expectation, especially considering Murray is coming off a season in which he played only 5 games before a foot injury ended his campaign. But the standard has changed. With Murray receiving the full QB1 workload moving forward, there should be a reasonable expectation that he can become a functional, productive starter and give Minnesota a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. And that is where the pressure begins. Because if the Vikings have a quarterback they believe can operate this offense, a strong defense, elite receiving talent, an improved offensive line, and multiple capable pieces around him, then missing the playoffs would create serious questions. The quarterback decision is no longer a competition. Now it is a commitment. The Vikings have chosen Kyler Murray. And from this point forward, every practice rep, every preseason snap, and eventually every regular season possession will be judged through that decision. There is also a fascinating historical comparison involving Sam Darnold. Last year, Darnold was named Minnesota's starting quarterback on August 14th, and after receiving the full workload, he was able to hit the ground running. That is exactly what Vikings fans should hope happens with Murray now. Instead of dividing repetitions between 2 quarterbacks, Minnesota can finally build its offense around one starter and allow that player to develop rhythm, timing, and chemistry with the rest of the unit. But there is one massive storyline that cannot be ignored. J.J. McCarthy. What happens to him now? Is he automatically QB2? Does Carson Wentz enter the conversation? Does McCarthy accept the role and continue developing in Minnesota? Or could this decision eventually lead to something nobody expected? McCarthy and his representatives exploring an exit? That is the question Vikings fans should be watching closely. Because the quarterback competition may be over, but the consequences of that competition are only beginning. What do you think, Vikings fans? Was Kyler Murray clearly the right choice? Or should Minnesota have continued giving J.J. McCarthy more time to develop? And now that Murray is officially QB1, what do you believe should happen with McCarthy? But now comes the part that could become even more important than the announcement itself. What happens when Kyler Murray finally gets the keys to the offense and J.J. McCarthy has to watch from the sideline? Because this is where the Vikings have to be extremely careful. The quarterback competition may have been designed to bring out the best in both players, but the argument can be made that splitting the repetitions actually created the opposite effect. When one quarterback goes for an extended period without throwing, while the other is taking the majority of the opportunities, neither player gets the uninterrupted rhythm that a starting quarterback needs. Now, that changes. Murray knows he is the starter. The coaching staff knows who they are building around. The offense knows who will be taking the majority of the snaps. And that gives everyone a much clearer direction heading into the regular season. For Murray, however, there is no room to hide. The moment you are named QB1, the expectations become real. Every preseason throw will be analyzed. Every mistake will be magnified. And if Murray struggles while McCarthy performs well, the conversation will immediately return to the quarterback competition that Minnesota just ended. That possibility could become especially interesting in the Vikings' next preseason opportunity. Imagine Murray struggles, while McCarthy comes in and delivers several impressive drives. Suddenly, the questions begin again. Did Minnesota make the right decision? Should McCarthy have been given more opportunities? Was Murray actually better? Or did the Vikings simply choose experience? That is why the way Murray responds to his promotion matters so much. There is reason for optimism, though. Murray is finally going to receive the consistent QB1 repetitions that were difficult to accumulate while the competition was still active. He can now spend more time working with the offensive starters, building timing with Justin Jefferson and the rest of the receiving corps, becoming comfortable with O'Connell's system, and preparing for what matters most. Week 1 against Green Bay. And that matchup could arrive with an entirely different level of attention. The Vikings will not simply be introducing a new quarterback. They will be asking whether Murray can become the missing piece for a roster that believes it can compete immediately. That is the gamble Minnesota has made. As for McCarthy, there is still plenty of uncertainty. It would be premature to assume he will demand a trade. There is nothing in the information provided that establishes that he has requested one. But the possibility of frustration is understandable. McCarthy has already endured an unusual beginning to his NFL career, including missing his entire rookie season with his knee injury. He then had an opportunity to establish himself, and now Minnesota has chosen a veteran former #1 overall pick instead. That does not mean McCarthy's career in Minnesota is over. In fact, this could still become a developmental opportunity. If McCarthy remains with the Vikings, he can continue learning the system, studying Murray, and working on the inconsistencies that prevented him from winning the competition. His career is nowhere near decided by this announcement. But the reality is simple. The Vikings have made their choice for now. Kyler Murray is QB1. And now, the most important question is no longer who wins the quarterback competition. It is whether Murray can prove the Vikings were right to end it. Minnesota has put a significant amount of confidence in him, and the roster around him gives him an opportunity that quarterbacks do not always receive. If he can stay healthy, protect the football, consistently move the offense, and take advantage of the weapons around him, the Vikings could have a very different season than many expected. But if he struggles, the pressure will come quickly. And somewhere behind him will be J.J. McCarthy, waiting for another opportunity. So now I want to hear from you, Vikings fans. Was Kyler Murray the right choice, or should Minnesota have stayed with J.J. McCarthy? And if Murray struggles early, do you think Kevin O'Connell should consider giving McCarthy another opportunity? Drop your opinion in the comments, because this quarterback decision could shape the entire Vikings season. And if you want to stay on top of every major Vikings development, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. The Kyler Murray era in Minnesota has officially begun, and now we get to find out where it takes this team.